Hey everybody, welcome to the PDQ Live. I think I timed it right this time. I got the end of the promo.
You nailed it.
I'm still on this one.
Oh, look at
I'll let you guys take over.
All right.
Bye, JJ.
I thought he was gonna have all kinds of input for us.
I'll still have input now that I'm in a quiet space, but carry on.
Oh, all right. All right, so we're just going to break it down. Unfortunately, our long-tenured admin, J-Dog Hambone, has been let go. We couldn't decide whether we were going to have him win the lottery and just not come back, or if he got fired. But since it basically is following my name, we'll say fired. But we're going to go over how to, you've inherited PDQ. They do a lot, but how to take over what's there and then make it your own. So the first thing I guess that you're going to want to do when you're taking over is make sure the credentials aren't bad, or first the background service. In this one, this should be a service user. If this was set to JDog Hambone, that is bad practice. You want this to be a service account, so it doesn't have a little bit more security and it's not tied to any individual user. Looks like in this case we're going to pretend that Quintana is a service account. Everyone play along. All right, and the next part you want to go through and make sure that your credentials are good. In this case, if JDog Hambone is still there, even though his account's probably disabled, you probably don't want that just hanging around, cluttering things up. And then
So Jordan,
yes.
quick question. So I just get this new job, right?
Mm-hmm.
My old man J-Dog Hambone's gone, but I don't even know what PDQ is. Is there a way that I can kind of like, once I'm in the product, kind of have some kind of help system to go off of, some kind of documentation? In the product?
Absolutely. The Getting Started guide is a great one. Boy, I should have tied that to something for PDF files. I clicked off. All right, so we are going to always use Chrome for PDF files in the future. There we go. Getting Started guide is a good way to give you a first intro into that one, and then anywhere that you open anything, you see those blue question marks, it's going to open you up to the relevant documentation, and it's really well written out. So for questions on how does this work or how do I make this work, just look for the blue question marks, and those will almost always lead you down the right path.
Okay, awesome.
Looks like someone's been following the outline, Andrew.
Guilty.
So back to the credentials we have in here. We don't need him anymore. I'm not going to remove it just because it will destroy a future example. But you see him there. You want to remove that. You want to keep that in there. And if your credentials are needed, add that. Or better yet, service account. Which remember, Quintana is our service account for all those at home.
So these are credentials that packages are going to run as on computers. Is that correct?
Run as, yeah. So this is on deploy. You also want to check it on inventory.
Okay.
Because if you have both, you can there's a checkbox that basically says use whatever the scan credentials are. So you want to come into the credentials here, and you can see JDog Hambone never added himself to inventory. I'm starting to think he didn't value this appropriately. We're gonna have a lot of corrections to make for his shoddy work. I can see why we let him go.
He's goofing off way too much, man.
And then the last area you want to check is the console users, and this is people that are allowed to use your product. And the first thing we're looking at here is he's got individual users, and I don't care for that. You can use 80 groups, and that way you don't have to come and change this. It's just whoever's in that 80 group has access to it. So first we're going to remove him as a console user. Then we're going to add a group, and as we know, everyone that uses PDQ, my caps lock is on, everybody.
Looks good.
Everyone that uses this is Studley McAwesomes. So we're just going to add him to that group. All right, so now anyone that is both Studley and awesome can come in and use this as a console. This doesn't change the licensing. It is still one admin per license, but if you have multiple licenses, this is a way to keep it centrally stored and not have to change it in the product every time.
Right, just kind of follow best practice, use groups. Cool.
Yep. All right, so now that we've got the credentials, we've got all that, make sure that's right. The next thing is the best way to dive in is just start with like a schedule or a package or anything and just follow it to its end, and you can kind of see what they were thinking about. In our case, we have 4 schedules that he has built. Hopefully you have more. If you could really automate a lot of your environment with PDQ, so hopefully there's more. But in this case, he's got 4. You can see, and this is why we didn't delete the credentials. He has his credentials stored in for this collection, but it looks like it is targeting Chrome Enterprise Old using the Enterprise Update one, and it runs every Friday. So every Friday night it goes through, and if people have an old version of Chrome updates, this is based on the auto update package, and then we have the target history so we can see who it is updated for.
Can you go to options real quick?
Absolutely.
So okay, so that credentials thing, the old admin JDog Hambone, he had that set to run as himself, which is probably not best practice. So
Yeah,
okay,
so that's even more reason to come in here, and we're gonna get rid of him.
oh, okay,
We had
awesome.
enough of his garbage. Let's get rid of that. And if you delete what's used there, it's not going to stop functioning. It's just going to go to whatever the default credentials. In this case, it's Quintana. Quintana or Quintana? I'm never sure if I got that right.
I think it's potato.
Yeah. And see, that is checked there. And then this checkbox here is what we're talking about, how if you're using inventory, it's going to use whatever inventory uses. So you don't have to worry about the credentials so much in deploy. It's incredibly useful. I'd recommend using that wherever you can. And the last thing is stop when it's succeeded. This is an important checkbox, especially for something like updating Chrome. Once we know that these have the latest Chrome, we don't want it to keep on trying. They'll just save space. So this schedule, overall, now that we've fixed the credentials, I think is pretty good. But it kind of gives you an idea. Apparently, Chrome is pretty critical. 25% of his schedules is dedicated to making sure people have Chrome.
Okay, and I'm looking at the packages on the left, and I'm seeing two different icons. I'm seeing the one with the little blue sloop-de-doo, and then what's the difference between those?
Oh, I hope Sloop-de-Doo sticks. I like it. So if it has the blue Sloop-de-Doo, that means it's part of our package library, and we will update that when new versions come out. And then based on your approval schedule, that's when that will update for you as well. So if you have it set to 7 days after Chrome's out, the new version of Chrome will then start pushing out to your clients.
Okay, so all of those packages with the blue sloop-de-doo, those are packages that are kind of be updated by PDQ and kind of handled by that.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
And then everything else, if it's just the regular orange box, then it's one that he built.
Cool.
All right, PowerShell, everybody, I got to tell you, this is my favorite schedule so far because I'm a fan of PowerShell and it's for everybody apparently. So every day at noon on all computers, he is installing PowerShell. We're just going to say PowerShell 7. PowerShell Core is for PowerShell 6. That is a contentious point for me, but PowerShell 7 is what installs. Credentials are fine, and he doesn't have this one to stop deploying, so every day, no matter what, it's going to go through and try to install PowerShell 7 on everybody. I'm going to say that there's some changes need to happen on this one.
Yeah, it's pretty inefficient.
Yeah. First, we want to make sure it doesn't go to everyone, and second of all, not everybody needs PowerShell. So maybe instead of everybody, you could come in here, delete all computers and just choose people that you need it. I don't have any sort of awesome collection in there, and should have done this first. The first time it loads, this takes a while. You could have come into, we only have PowerShell 5 in the collection, but you could come into people that don't have it already, and or build a new collection, which we'll go over in a bit here. And you can limit who's getting PowerShell, because as awesome as PowerShell is, not everybody needs or has use for it.
Right. And
Go ahead.
since we're taking over a new environment here, it's our chance to get rid of these very inefficient practices, right? Because as time goes on, if you're going to be taking care of PDQ, you want to have it set up properly. You don't want to start your situation off with PDQ with a bunch of technical debt and packages that are inefficient and schedules that are running all hours of the day. And so this is your chance to kind of get it right and more efficient.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of just the best flow to track is just start at some random thing, follow it through to conclusion, see if it works for you, or if not, take notes, change what you want to change, remove what you want to remove, but we'll just kind of dive into each one of those and kind of follow them to their conclusion. Obviously, reboot required workstations is a terrible collection to point to, but there, I've done it anyway. All right, this next one, I'll tell you right off the bat, this is one I don't think we need. I don't care about forcing up reboots on people. I think that should be up to, up to the user themselves. If they're having problems, they can reboot it then, but I don't want to force this issue. But he has it every day at 5 p.m. on anything with a collection, which this isn't the default collection. So we know he has his own custom collection. We'll go look at that next. And it runs a package he built and then has the same options that we know are good there. So first we'll take a look at the reboot machines. It's just going to, I believe, be a reboot step where it doesn't ask anything. Yeah, so this is awful aggressive, messing with people. It's not even going to give them a chance to delay that. So this is one we're probably going to do away with that. But let's go take a look at his uptime. And you can see here, there's just already built in the computer table anything over 14 days. So this is where he built a dynamic collection. We already have a needs reboot that are based on various other factors. I don't think we want this collection or that schedule at all, so we're going to go through and remove those. If that's something that you want to keep, more power to you. I'm not a big fan of choosing for people they should reboot. If it needs to reboot for a software install, you can put that in that package. Or if there's a more specific reason, you could do it more timed. But just saying over 14 days has to reboot, I'm not a fan.
Right. And if you're hesitant, since it's a new job, a new environment, whatever, you don't want to delete things, you can disable. You can remove the triggers, if you want to refer to it later. If you're not sure, maybe there's some weird business need that you need to reboot after 14 days.
Yep. Even if you don't want to just remove the trigger, you can just uncheck enabled, and that will disable the schedule completely. You can see here we made baseline where it's grayed out on that
Nice.
icon.
Jordan, I'm going to disagree with you on this. I think it's important to establish dominance in your new position and force that reboot. Let people know you are the new guy in charge.
Well, in my experience of 37 years of attempting, dominance never works out. So
All right, point made. Conceded.
All right, if you're the type that can get away with it, then more power to you. That's full contact IT. Lex is a big fan of that. So if you can, I suppose do. But you know what? I'm submissive. I'm just gonna lay down.
I was thinking that this was a Lex schedule, not your made up character. I thought this is one that you just left in accidentally or intentionally.
I guess if we want to get more aggressive, you could randomize the reboot timeline for the collection. There's a lot of things you could do to make it so machines are just randomly shutting down through the day. Just make sure you have an ending time or within the options where it's not going to try it within the work window. You want to do that after business hours.
Can we do a reboot lottery schedule?
And if you pay, you can take your name out of the lottery.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I thought,
Now you're establishing dominance.
yeah, we're making our product work at first, but now we're just making our lives better. So
I like the direction this is going.
I hope
This is
everyone's
good.
taking notes. All right, so this one, baseline is probably a good idea. This new machines coming into your environment is probably my best bet. You can see here, there's a collection named new machines. Baseline package will go look in, and it's just all the same stuff. This one doesn't have stop deploying, but that's not a big deal because most likely if it's based in a new machines collection, it's going to remove after. We'll make sure that's the case. If not, we can fix it. But for now, we'll assume this one's okay. And it looks like, based on this is the package here he's using, baseline. Looks like it's installing Chrome, Notepad, PowerShell 7, FileZilla, and then it's removing a file.
So this package has packages.
Yeah, this is just a package that runs all of our install packages that we have downloaded, and it looks like it's going to end with remove file, which is, we'll open that one up. It's a PowerShell step that's removing a new machine.txt. That tells me he's using a text file to indicate. That means he probably has a scanner. We'll look at that in just a bit. I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather have it based on organizational unit, where it's pulling that in. If you have a new machine, pop in OU, and then this step, instead of removing the file, have it move it to a different OU.
Okay, so it looks like the old admin was leaving some files after imaging a computer, and this
well, it
is
looks
just
like he's cleaning up the file after, but it looks like his image process is putting a file on the C drive,
right.
And then at the end of the baseline, it's deleting the file. It'll work. It's not my favorite, so if I was going to be fixing this one, I would do it based on OU, and just have when it builds a machine, it's in a static OU, not a static, but a defined OU, and then you can move it once everything is done. To go and look at that collection just so we can see if it is using a scanner like we thought. New machines. File directory name equals new machine.txt. So that's all it is. It's a file directory scanner that's in there, but he probably has a custom scanner if you're looking for something that's not the default. So we're going to go to our scan profiles here. New machines. It's already highlighted. It's like you think I was looking at it. All right, so this is just going to go in, and it is just a file scanner looking for that very specific file. So if you go through and you add that file to someone's machine, this collection is going, or this baseline is going to go install a bunch of software on people's machine, whether they need it or not.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then triggers, looks like I disabled this one. We don't need to run that, but this would be one that would probably match up close with whatever your update is. If this is running not once but daily at a certain time, you'd want to run this a little bit before the scanner wants to run a little bit before the actual schedule, just to make sure that it has the latest information. So the scanner will remove those that don't have it and update everything you need. So we'd want to not just run that once, but we'd want to do daily. And then the schedule is at 7 a.m. I believe, so we used to do 6:30. So now every day at 6:30 it's going to go through. It's going to run that scanner on all machines. If I saved it, I didn't actually specify a collection, so we're going to link that to all machines. There we go. So while he had that up, it wasn't going to be working the way we were thinking initially. We'll just do a allow scan. And this way, all machines, 30 minutes before it's starting the baseline, is actually going to scan to make sure it's hitting the right machines you're looking for. But like I said, this is one, make it your own. This will work, but I prefer just using the OUs within Active Directory to handle that.
Right. So determining what the default computer OU is for newly imaged computers and targeting that instead of using this whole new file creation, scan, that whole process.
Yeah, especially when you have a chance to leave artifacts behind on machines. I'm not a fan of that. It's not as bad as going in and tattooing the registry, but it's not ideal either.
It's
so
a
if you
little
could,
dirty.
Yeah, if you could work around it, absolutely do that. And so that's kind of mostly what you're looking for a deploy. Now that we know that what's in there, what's working for you, what's not, you can go through. We removed one schedule. The baseline we're probably going to update. But this is where you'd want to go through. You want to find what am I missing. So if there's a certain software you think they want to have, fantastic. Or if there's something, as you get to know your environment, this is where you want to go and add your own after you change. There's not everything that you see from his has to go. We're keeping a large portion, but customization definitely comes next.
Yeah. And when I went through this process, like a couple months ago at my last job, one of the things that I really encouraged my replacement to do was to go through the whole list of packages and organize them in a way that made sense to them. Because honestly, I was using PDQ for a few years, and over time, there was no organization. I had a ton of packages doing different things. So a good exercise was for my replacement to go through, check out the package, organize it in a way that makes sense to them because they're going to be the primary admin and that kind of thing.
I can't keep source control on my own scripts. I'm definitely not going to packages keep that organized.
Right.
But we'll say possible delete. We'll just create a quick folder. So we know that if we're removing the Reboot Machines one, we'll move that into the possible delete folder, and you can just organize this way, kind of get grouped the way you want that way. This is a fantastic way to, when you disable something, to see if it works or not, to give it a chance, and if you think that it comes back around and turns out you're wrong, you do need it. You don't have to build it from scratch. If you don't need it after a certain amount of time, you can just go through and delete what you're not looking for, what you don't need anymore.
Especially in a new environment, because you guys, if you've been in IT for a long enough time, there's a lot of duct tape out there, a lot of odd things in an environment that you're going to want to make sure you're aware of.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess a good example on make it your own. When I first took over Exchange at my last job, there was a script that ran every hour on the hour. It was a PowerShell script that would go through and would tell you if there was backed up messages in the queue. But it would tell you whether there was messages backed up or not. And I just left it there because I was new to the position. It was my first time taking over a critical system, and I was nervous to touch anything. And then the junior that came in to kind of backfill what I was doing stepped in and said, well, why do they have this? And I realized I could change it. So I modified the script, and it only sent me information if the queue was backing up. And nice. It turned that script from just white noise that you're going to ignore to usually, if it popped up, you knew something was wrong. So it's just one of those examples where what was there kind of worked, but don't be afraid to improve it when you take over something. Just make sure you know exactly what you're looking for and keep what was old in case you have to reactivate it.
Exactly. Yeah, because you will save a lot of legwork. You won't have to recreate the package from scratch. And that being said, you should also probably use this as an opportunity to make sure that the databases are being backed up appropriately so that if anything happens to the server, you're able to restore your database from a backup.
So we just come here to database. You can see here he does have backups. He's keeping it on the local machine. You might want to go look at moving that into a file share so it's not stored on the same machine. Just remove that risk. And he's keeping 10 backups and backing up every Saturday. So he has 10 weeks of backups as just in 1 week increments. So you have pretty good backup, but this is another thing you want to customize, especially when you're making a lot of changes early on. Maybe make the schedule more aggressive and move it to a file share. That way, if you need to back up, you can. You're not losing as much data. As you get more comfortable and you're not changing so much but just maintaining, then you can stretch out your backups at that point.
Yep.
All right. The last place we're going to look is inventory, is reports. If you're over a system, people are going to want information on that. In this case, we got bad apples, so we know JDog Hambone is hilarious. We got that from the collection, but we're going to come in here. It looks like it's just running a single report of the bad apps report, but not on a schedule, so it's not going to be automated anyway. So apparently he's just running on demand. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and fix this. We'll set this every day. We'll say at 4 p.m. It's not going to interrupt anyone's workflow, so it should be fine there. And then we'll go take a look at the report on what it's running against.
What if they're using one of the bad apps?
The bad apps, well, in this case, from what we've seen, there's nothing he's doing from it. It's just for his more information so we can help remove it. But in this case, this is where there's useful information in there. Maybe you can create actionable content on that one on your own. You have the reports, but you could also build a collection where it does the removal. We're going to go into define reports, and it looks like this is using custom variable, the approved apps. It does not match expression. It looks like it's going through and finding every machine that does not on the approved list. So things like auto hotkey. And this is another area where it's probably good that it's not removing off the bat, because I may think auto hotkey is not important, but I think if I remove this, JJ would come down with righteous anger.
So you mentioned custom variables?
Yep, custom variables. So that's just up here in options, he said. Question? That's custom fields. There we go, variables. There we go. Obviously, there's no 6-zip. He's wasting his time. We'll delete those.
Okay, so those are bad old.
Yeah, old variables aren't used anything. This is the app that collection is using, and it looks like it is just an OR query for a regex, and he has all the software that he thinks he needs. 7-zip, Adobe, Evernote, FileZilla, PowerShell 7 obviously needs to be in there. Obviously, PDQ. That should be line 1, although the order doesn't matter. But so you can see here, this is where you go through. Like, you decide if you don't need one. Like, I don't care if people have Foxit and you want to add one, you just go to the end and add a pipe. We'll just say, Notepad++. I don't know if there's a space, though. I'm playing fast and loose here.
I don't think there's a space.
Okay. So, and that's just where you can come in for his report, and you can customize that to what you need. You're not always going to agree what people need. And you don't have to completely redo it, but you can obviously change it to fix what it needs. And then from there, if you don't want to just do auto reports, but you want a collection for people that are breaking it, you could come in and just do a new dynamic collection.
Okay.
Just hit the button.
So we saw he had a report that referred to a variable, and now we're going to create a collection.
Yeah, we're gonna try it live. So it's gonna be application. I should have looked closer at the report. Name. I'm trying to remember what I read off out loud there. Not version.
Does not match pattern or
Does
expression.
not match pattern or expression. Oh, is it pattern?
I think
or
it's expression.
I'm gonna go check instead of wild guess.
Ah, come on, live dangerously.
It looks like I broke it anyway when I went through and made changes there. Does not match expression. Once again, Andrew is right and I am wrong. It's becoming a running theme.
Pure luck. Pure luck.
Expression, and then the variable is just going to be there automatically for you. There.
Okay.
But it looks like I had to go in and correct what I did wrong with the
plus.
the variable. Oh, the plus isn't allowed.
Not certain, but it's a guess.
Okay, let's find out. Yeah, plus it was. So that's going to make Notepad plus different. I wonder if you could do like an escape character on that one. That sounds like a great one too. And I didn't name my own collection.
Notepad plus equals 1.
Plus one. Has bad apps. Now we'll get an actual name. You can see here we have 21 machines that need to be cleaned up. I'll start removing auto hotkey right now. All right. I'm not really going to do that. I am afraid of JJ, and he is not across the country right now, so I have to live in that fear.
That's a healthy fear.
All right. So now we've kind of gone through. We've kind of built the product so it's our own. The last thing we want to do is make sure the performance testing is what we're looking for. And I believe Chad Cooper, he wrote something that is a fantastic guide to kind of help you out to dial in everything. It has basic external factors. And outside of the schedules weren't all run at the same time. That's important if you want to kind of stagger that. Last thing we're going to come in, we're going to look at the settings we have with Control Comma. And we'll go to deployments. You can see here on this cleanup, he has this set to 0. That means it is never going to delete old deployments. Bad JDog Hambone.
That'll bite you in the butt one day.
Yeah, so this is how many days. I mean, you want a history. You want to know how long. You want to make sure stuff is installed, but you don't want it to go forever. depending on your environment, and this is something you're going to have to figure out, how many machines do you have, how bad do you need to clean. I'm just going to set it to 30 days myself. If you have a lot of deployments going, you might want to get more or less aggressive. It's just something you're going to want to dial in.
30 is a good starting point, though.
Yeah, I think 30 is a good place to start, and then you can move from there. Next thing on scanning. The scan after deployment, the default scan profile is what it chooses. I'm not a fan of this. There's a lot of stuff you don't need. If you installed something, you probably only need the application scanner. This is going to be faster. It's going to save you a lot of time. It's just, I would set that to applications. That's just me, but if you want that default, this is one to keep an eye on.
Because the standard scanner still runs. It just doesn't run after each PDQ deployment. It just runs on whatever schedule you have it on. So once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever.
Yep, and if we've deployed something, we don't really care what's in there. We just care if the application changed. We don't care about all the other information.
Right.
If it is a custom schedule you built and it's not installing an application but changing a setting that you're checking, then on that one, on the schedule of the package itself, you can change what scanner it uses for that specific one. But just the default application, I think, is your best bet.
It's a lot more efficient, yeah.
This one, ping before deployment, I would always check this one. This one basically, it goes, and if it can't reach the machine, it's not going to bother. It's going to save you a lot of time on failing to connect. That one's going to be a massive time saver. And if you remember on the schedules, he had the heartbeat schedule. We prefer the heartbeat schedule. I'd use that all the time. If you have that, for sure, I wouldn't use the retry queue. If you think you need both, I guess it's to each their own, but retry queue and heartbeat do a similar function. They just go about it differently. Retry's brute force. It's going to retry within a window no matter what every time, where heartbeat's going to, once a machine that's offline comes online, if it's queued up, it will send it through it that way. So heartbeat has a lot more finesse. It's better. I would recommend that one. So if you use that one, I would uncheck retry queue.
In fact, Brock has a new blog out on going over the differences between retry queue and heartbeat trigger. Really good blog.
Yep, they'll both get you there, but yeah, pick which one best for you. All right, and then the next one we're going to is just the performance tab. And this is where you can change a whole lot of different settings. Total concurrence and the number of deployments. That's another one. We have 8 and 32 by default. Looks like he kept the default. But that's when know your environment, trial and error. To me, it's easier to overextend and have to pull it back, or you can see it where to have the targets be too low and just never see that you could go more. So I'd rather go higher and pull it back as you need.
Right. Yeah, if you have a bigger environment and a beefy server, you might need to increase those. But
and then push is the default. If you'd rather have the machine pull down the install file, let's just change it there. That's if you have something like DFS, you want to change that to pull. Otherwise, I would keep that push.
Right. Okay. So if your repository is on the same server the PDQ is on, definitely use push.
Absolutely. Yep. That's kind of the performance for that one. Let's go. I didn't save anything, so that was time well spent.
Just watch the webcast again and make the changes. So.
All right, the other one, inventory, has PDQ Deploy. This is similar to the other. How long is it going to keep the deployments in the table? And if we come in here and open up a machine, there is a deployments tab. It's how long it's going to keep it in here. It's not a huge deal, but I mean, it's going to unnecessarily grow your table if you're never cleaning it off. So you might want to check that and set that to whatever you think is fine. Depending on how, like if you're only deploying 1 or 2 things a week, you could probably set this pretty far out there, but just make sure you don't have that growing too much unnecessarily.
Yeah. Right. Marcel had a good point. He mentioned the mail server configuration.
Oh, yes, for the reports.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll actually go in and showcase that one. I mean, you think that Marcel had access to
our show notes
to the outline, because now everyone, even people that don't have it, are following it better than me. All right, so in reports there was I'll open the actual report. In this one we have it where it's just it's saving local, which is another. I mean, maybe put that on a file share where everyone can access it. And then there is a mail option, and we don't have those set.
Okay.
So on this one, I believe we have some extra settings where I have to go through and allow it, and they don't have set up. But this is where you just set up like a normal SMTP. You can send a test email, make sure it works, and you can go through and set up your email that way. If that is working, your email set up, then you can come into the report here and just set who it's going to, and it will use the email from your settings there.
Okay, so with this setup, JDog was not sending any reports. There could be some value. If you're a new admin, like there could be some cool reports that you could send to yourself and your boss, and maybe show what's not up to date or things of that nature.
Yeah, there's been a running trend of JDog not understanding everything the inventory can do. He's been underutilizing it badly. Even his auto reports weren't running on a schedule.
But at least the new employee can make his job easier, or her job easier for themselves.
We've seen where he's lacking now. Yeah, make it your own and improve it. So the email is definitely a good one to do. I'd have to do some back-end configuration to get past our security for the email, which I don't think anyone wants to watch that live, and I don't want to.
Oh, definitely not. But in your new work environment, you're probably going to want to know what's up with your SMTP situation.
Yeah, spend the time on that. And then the next one you want to look at definitely is your timeout and your concurrent scans allowed. All right, and then from that, I believe on this queue, we have a recommendation on the heartbeat trigger on how long to run it. See if we can't find it based on endpoints. The default's 300 seconds, but more endpoints means you probably want to stagger the heartbeat. All right, and do we have any questions?
Yeah, let's do a speed round. We have 4 random type questions. All right, Here we go. Gentlemen, what ports need to be open on the firewall or via proxy in order for items in the PDQ package library to be downloaded? Sincerely, Timothy R.
Come into. There's a really good knowledge base article written by Brig on this one. So if you have the central server set up, you need these TCP ports. Other than that, by default, if these are allowed on the firewall, our products should work. If you are using a proxy, there is a setting within Control-Command, open up the preferences again. There's the proxy here where you can go in and set this. If you have a specific proxy you are using, you can configure it there on what port it's using.
Jordan, on that other page, can you go back for a second?
Absolutely.
And scroll down a little bit more to the very bottom.
Okay.
With regards to the packet, keep going.
Okay.
There's a list of like URLs the person can like click on and test out.
Okay. Oh, those ones there?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so as long as
this is how
these
you
are
update.
working?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so that's just, if you just go in the search bar on PDQ.com, firewall is the first selection there, and you have a lot of tests you can do there, and you can see what ports are needed for it to work.
Nice. All right, next question. Dear Jordan and Andrew, if some deployments, files, or packages need to be moved to a different server, what is the quickest way to update the entries on PDQ? Sincerely, Daruf P.
Well, my first thought is, are we moving the repository? Because if you're referring to the repository variable, if you update what your repository is in PDQ, I believe it should help you out.
Yep. So if your repository is on a file share already, then you can just copy the package over and make sure the repository is the same, and if it has access to the file share, it should update for you. Or if you're on central server and it's going to a client, that should be copied for automatically. If it's a different repo, it's going to be similar since it uses the variable $sign repository when it's mapping that out. Just make sure you're going to have to copy all of the files that are in your current repo to the new location and then copy the packages over, and it should work for you without question. You might have some credentials issues, so make sure you check your credentials on that one. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. Hey guys, what are the plans and timelines to integrate the use of PDQ Deploy and Inventory in Microsoft Endpoint MDM? Sincerely, ICTK.
Mobile device management is something worth looking into. Unfortunately, as far as timelines and plans, I'm out of loop on that. When things get close is when they tell me so I can start testing to showcase. But as far as anything that's going in the back end, I just don't have a lot of insight into that one. I think we're trying to make it a bit more broad in its usage, but it's something where I unfortunately can't give the info.
Well, let's try this one then. Hey guys, any current or future plans to integrate and utilize WinGet or the Windows app installer in PDQ Deploy? Has anyone played with it yet? T-Fro.
That's one I haven't played with. I'll have to take a look at it. And that's another one where future plans, I'm just not sure. But if it's something that can be used, if you can call that with PowerShell, you could already use it with our product. You just have to write the PowerShell around it and make that a step in the deployment. But without looking into it, I can't really go in further than that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. If there's a new command to install an application, you can just run the command using PDQ and create your collections based off of whatever you want and target things however you'd like.
All right. And our final question. I set up a schedule a year back. I have the notification set to schedule summary, but it's hit or miss whether it sends or not. And it only includes a handful of the packages in the report summary. When it does send, what's up with that? Jay Winkleman.
That's one where we'd have to see the report and everything on that one. If you open up a ticket with support, they can definitely help you dive into that one and get it figured out, because that's not the expected behavior. But without being able to see what's going into that, I can't really come up with anything. So it's support at pdq.com, I believe, is the email. Just send it into there, and very smart people. Maybe Andrew will fix it for you.
That is about all we have for questions today. Although before we finish, I just want to make one more quick plug for the webinar that we have scheduled on June 16th. Cybersecurity, especially relating to K through 12. I've got the link in the chat. So please get in there, get registered. Really relevant right now. If you're paying attention to the news, this is like a super, super big deal. It always has been, but now everybody knows about it. So June 16th, make sure you're there. And camera 2.
All right. Thanks for everyone tuning in. Hopefully, if you're taking over PDQ products, you have a soft handoff. Someone's going out and it's all designed and they can help you out. If it's just thrown at you, just take it one step at a time. There's a lot that it can do. So understand what's in there, remove what you don't need, make it your own, and you should be good to go. For PDQ.com, I'm Jordan.
Thank you for being a part of our webcast today. If you had questions that we were not able to get to today, feel free to reach out to our support forums. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week.